meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And anybody want to volunteer to say the pledge while the rest of us mute? I'll go ahead then.
Andy.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we'll go on to a roll call. Mary Kay?
Yep, there we go. Andy Mary,
Yes.
Jim Balzer,
Here.
Mike Boldig,
Here.
Noel Deep,
Here.
Jeannie Long,
Here.
Jessica Mead, Mary Neufeld, Danny Pyatt, JD Schrader,
We don't have a.
Here. Sorry, couldn't get my mute to work.
thank you. I think Mary's working on getting, or working on joining us.
Okay, we do have a quorum, so we can continue on. And I look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move the board approve the minutes from the April 28, 2020 Board of Education meeting, financial report from April 2020, consideration of current bills, check numbers 3843 through 3904 in the amount of $166,691.38, ACH number 192001067 through 192001131 in the amount of $816,763.12, and one wire transfer in the amount of $15,377.03 for a total of $998,831.53.
I'll second that.
Any questions or comments? Then we'll do a roll call for that too, Mary Kay.
Okay. Balzer,
Yes.
Boldig,
Yes.
Deep,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Neufeld,
Yeah, what? I just got here. What are we talking? Is this roll call?
Nope.
consent agenda.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sure. There you go.
And Schrader,
Yes.
and Mary.
Yes. Okay, we'll go on to public comment. Do we have some public comment, Mary Kay?
Joel, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
I was just, can I talk or is someone
Yeah,
else?
if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Okay. Yeah, my name's Joel Wagner. I am in the 6th Ward Alderman for the city of Antigo. And my one question is that I did a little research on a year-long school, and it turns out that it's very plausible. I don't know about here in Antigo, but because that's really up to you guys. But my one question is that could you guys consider a year-long school year for Antigo? Is that something we can do or vote on or something? Is my question.
Joel, I'll just say that we have had a discussion about year-long school. And
Okay.
so we've had that discussion, but with consolidation, it's not the right time to go ahead and do it. And it also
Right. I was thinking like maybe something like next year or like the follow or like the year after or something. Like right now wouldn't be the very good time, obviously. So I guess.
Can I,
Like-
Joe? Can I interrupt you, JD Schrader, board member?
Sure.
Would you pay the teachers more to work more hours? Would you be in favor of a referendum to do that?
I would, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but who else would be?
So we're not going to have a discussion on this right now, but Joel, if you have more to say on this topic, go ahead.
Other than that, then the data shows that the people that have, or the not the people, sorry, the school districts that have done this around the country have shown very, very high good data that students do show that they do keep the information, math, and all that kind of stuff with them throughout, even throughout college. It's very good. But other than that, that's really all I had to. That's really all my question was.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for those comments.
Thank you. I appreciate you letting me chime in.
Okay. All right. We'll go on to the student report. And I know Heather is here. Nathan, are you on tonight?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Take it away.
Okay. Heather, you can go ahead and start.
Okay, so prom, we're still having it as of right now, July 18th, but tomorrow our class officers are going to be meeting as well as a few other people to form backup plans just in case we have to either change prom or cancel it altogether.
Okay. Then AP exams took place May 11th through 15th and May 18th through 22nd. This year, students will be informed of their scores in about mid-July, around July 14th through 16th. Students picked up graduation materials on May 19th in a drive-through format. Drive-through graduation is currently scheduled for this Sunday at 2 p.m. And I'd just like to thank the Board of Education for allowing me to represent the student body as a representative for the past 2 years. It's been a great honor and a great learning experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I could offer also thanks to both Heather and Nathan for serving as our student reps this school year. And Nathan, congratulations to you, a milestone reached, and also congratulations on your valedictorian honor.
Thank you.
Okay. And
Andy, reasonably related to this, Dr. Deep, how do you feel about having prom? Sound like in your head it's a go?
Well, if the businesses are opening and gives us an opportunity to look around and see what happens, if the virus does not come back and if the incidence of the cases in the county and in the state go down, then that's probably something worth considering. Otherwise, we'll have to come up with the option of canceling, or it's the same thing with the graduation too. Probably the open air stadium seating or something like that at our football stadium or county fairgrounds to consider.
That'd be romantic to dance on the football field.
I don't know. I've never danced, so can't answer. Looks like Jean is looking forward to that.
yeah, for some people, it wouldn't matter where they're dancing.
Right?
Right.
So some of us, it's just in our minds.
Yeah. Okay.
Whatever they do it.
So thank you to both of you. And Nathan, you've done a great job over the 2 years, and I'm really pleased, and I hope we continue with a good student rep next year. We'll go on to item 4, COVID update.
Unmute. There we go. So the first bit of COVID update we have for you is very exciting. And Mr. Rogers let me know last week that as of last week, every single graduate had met the civics exam requirement. And as you recall, we did not ask for a waiver on this because Mr. Rogers thought we could make it happen with those who hadn't passed yet. And he thanks Mr. Dukoch, Mrs. Kretz, and Mrs. Maddock for their efforts in making that happen. So a shout out there. And then the rest of the update tonight, we wanted to talk with you about moving forward with virtual learning. As you know, some of you have been working with the district longer than I have. Virtual learning and really being a one-to-one district with devices to students has been on our list for quite a while. And for one reason or another, most of which I would attribute to turnover, it just hasn't gained momentum and risen to the top of our priority list. Well, there is no better time to move that forward than now as we prepare for the unknown in the fall.
So, can I briefly interrupt? Can you see
of course.
Can they get that YouTube video to be streaming? It says video unavailable on my screen. I was just wondering if we got to do a click. It says 10 people are watching, but it doesn't.
Okay.
Maybe it's just my screen.
Dustin, can you respond to that?
Or for that matter, did any of the rest of you click on the link? It just said it must be approved for you to view it. Does it work for anyone else?
JD, this is Mike. I can't say that if it is or if it isn't because I'm working off of my Chromebook and it's working just fine for me off of this.
Right. I mean, but you have to just open the YouTube link in a different browser window.
Mm.
The link is in the
Well,
initial
I
announcement.
haven't tried it, so.
Okay.
Julie, you can probably keep going while he works on
Okay.
that.
Okay, thank you. So we wanted to speak with you this evening, and you'll see later on in the agenda, we will ask you actually to approve a purchase whereby we can have devices one-to-one for the fall. And with the uncertainty whether or not we'll be back in session with all students, or we somehow have to have fewer students at a time, et cetera, or a blended learning model. None of that has been decided, yet all of it is talked about a lot. And so one thing we know is that we have to have the devices first, and then we would have to move forward with the training, et cetera. Simply purchasing the devices by no means makes us an adept virtual learning district. It simply gives us the opportunity to take steps forward in that regard. Tim or Mark, any information you'd like to share at this time?
Mark here. Not too much at this time. There'll be a lot. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions when we start looking at the purchases and everything. So, unless others have the questions right now, we can leave the questions until we're actually looking at the devices and the ideas of what we are purchasing.
Did you say all students? Are we talking I'm sorry, I missed that part.
Yes.
All grades?
Yes.
Cool.
It would be
You got a guess on a
iPad.
price range there?
And you'll see that later on in the agenda as well. iPads would be for our 4K through first grade learners, and then Chromebooks for second grade through 12.
Okay, I think we'll leave further discussion on that until when we get to the that on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
And anything else on COVID?
Just the drive-through graduation that Nathan referenced happening this coming Sunday. And I know so far, Mary Kay and I have received notice that 3 board members will attend. If you do plan to attend, if you would let us know so that we can post the agenda as necessary.
Okay, Dr. Deep, should we be wearing our mask at that event?
Well, if you're going to be more than 6 feet away, probably not, but I definitely would recommend wearing one.
Yes, and that was in the packet that went home with the kids as well, that we recommend even the graduates wear a mask, and as school personnel will be wearing them.
Okay, thank you. Then we will go on to new business and looking for a motion to approve the committee of the whole minutes.
I move the board approve the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting on May 12th, 2020.
Seconded.
Any questions or comments? Then all those in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes, and we will go on to board action items, consideration of a request to transfer funds to the Nobroken Environmental Center building project.
I move the board approve a transfer of $75,000 from timber sales revenue and an additional transfer of up to $75,000 from the general fund to support the Neboken Environmental Center building project.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
If we take this money out of fund balance, what is our balance going to be?
Gee, last year, let me just grab a budget book here, just a second. Jeannie, I don't have the exact number, but we have an unassigned fund balance as of July 1 of last year of just over $3.6 million. We do short-term borrowing. And we are in a position this year with COVID that we are, any unexpended funds we are going to be putting towards fund balance. I'm also going to be prepared to look at Fund 46 at the request of Andy Mary. I'd like to just speak. We've had some donation activity since the committee of the whole meeting. We did receive a Sonatag Foundation grant, which would be county materials, and they will be giving us an in-kind donation for the value of the concrete. So they're going to supply all of the concrete as part of the grant application. We have raised to date roughly $317,000. Then we had a matching grant for $250,000. Right now, as bid, we're short about $140,000 if we take if we include the cost of the polished concrete floor. And that option was $48,000 as bid. And the committee was mixed as to that seemed like an extravagant purchase for the building. It'd be very nice to have, but at this point we don't have the funds. So the last time I talked to our contractor, the Schwann's Custom Homes, we need to get, if we're going to get going this fall, we need to get on their schedule. And so Mike Wordio spoke at the committee of the whole and asked for those 2 items to be brought forward. So I can take questions from there.
Tim, this is Mike. Is it possible that other than doing a polished concrete that we would do some type of an epoxy sealant or an epoxy coating on it that would be substantially less dollars?
Well, you know, Mike, we'd have to look at that. So when we came back to you the first time, we took that out of the bid, and it went, you know, essentially we're taking 50,000 out. So we're at somewhere around 660,000. And I think with those numbers, you know, the $75,000 transfer from the timber harvest gets us a long way to completing that building. I want to caution too, though, that furnishings within the building were not included in the bid specification. So we've got essentially, for that bid price, we've got an empty building. And the committee knows that, and we'll use furniture from the warehouse or whatever we got to do to make it work. But I would, I don't want to comment on whether or not we should transfer money. As the business manager, I asked Mike to speak on that behalf as for the committee. I think he made a pretty good case for it. But my role with the district is to protect that fund balance rather than openly go to expend it. And so I'll leave it there at that and let the board members decide what to do.
You know, I think this building's going to be great for our kids. It's going to be great for our district. But I've been on a board for a lot of years, and that is a lot of money to take out of fund balance. I mean, we don't know what is going to happen to the future, and I really hate to see take that amount of money out of our fund balance. I'm like with you, Tim. We need to preserve it and save it.
Were you going to speak, Mike? Go ahead if you were.
Yeah, Andy, I was. Well, I think we have taken money out of fund balance before for various projects, and it's always been based on what's in the best educational needs of the students of the district. This falls under that, and it's not a set in stone amount of money that says, yeah, we're automatically going to take $75,000 out of fund balance. It's more of a contingency, I think, at this point than anything, that it's possible. We know that the fundraising group is still continuing to go out into the community as best they can under the current situation to try to raise those funds. So I think this is more of a stepping stone to getting them going and getting that center up and making it another jewel in our district, so to speak. So I think the expenditure is well worth it. And I think that realistically, none of us can predict the future. And as we well know this year, but I think it's an investment that we need to make.
I will agree with what you said there, Mike.
Tim, this is probably a small piece in this larger picture, but going forward, can we expect a decrease in the timber sales over the coming years because of the storms that we've had?
Right now, we have Jessica Cruzensterna is the DNR forester that manages our school property. She is in the process of inventorying our timbered land and then getting it under forest management. I really don't have an answer for you, Jim. You know, we know that there are sporadic sales. We've maintained a balance in that school forest of account between, it's been up and down. We've done things like we put the pavilion up. We've done some trail maintenance. We put in the porta potty or the pit toilets, the generator, all of that came from timber sales. And we built that up over the last probably 10 or 15 years. Our anticipation is that, you know, I think we won't have trouble raising money for the main purposes, transportation to the school forest. We'll have a balance there of about $10,000 after the transfer, if that's approved. And that will certainly get us through the next school year. We didn't have significant blowdown as a result of the storm last summer. So our schedule of harvesting, it shouldn't have been impacted.
Okay, thank you.
Tim, do we pay taxes on our school property?
We do not.
And what's the advantage of getting into managed forest program versus just having somebody manage it?
Because we are a designated school forest, we get free assistance from the Wisconsin DNR. And that's our primary, we're not a managed forest property per se. We're a school forest designation.
Okay, but so you said they were going to come up with a managed forest plan.
Correct. An updated managed forest plan.
Okay. Okay.
All right, Tim, tell me one more time. You think we can afford to do this out of fund balance and be relatively okay next year? I mean, we already had a deficit, right? I'm sorry I missed the committee of the whole where you guys probably talked about this in detail. My killer was working really bad.
I think what Tim was telling us is it's up to us to decide if that fund balance is there or not.
Yeah, and JD, if my back of the napkin math is right, you're less than 2% of our current fund balance. And again, I want to caution the board too. It's the fund balance on July 1. When we look to November 30th, that number is completely different.
Mhm.
Okay. Any further comments?
So if the fund balance transfer does not occur, can the project go ahead? Just with the timber.
When we originally talked to the board, we looked at taking the building as far as we could go with the money that we had available. And if we don't transfer for fund balance, we're gonna, through the board's permission, go ahead and build the building. At that particular juncture when we stopped, the sale of Spring Valley was not closed. So I wanted to come back to the board once we had Spring Valley closed. And then the committee asked for those, what we're voting on tonight, what you're voting on. And with your permission, we would go as far as we could take it and then continue in earnest with fundraising.
So if you only transfer the $75,000 today from the timber sales into this Nebokan fund, will that get it off the ground and then you can continue with the fundraising by the time you are done with the building?
That, Dr. Deep, that will get us within $50,000 of completion without the concrete. So we would probably be, I'm going to guess 95% complete at that point.
But would we be able to use the building, or does it need to be 100% completed?
We typically have complete buildings when we take over. An environmental center is a little different. I mean, when I look at how our neighboring schools built them, they built them in a similar fashion, whether that be Rhinelander or Wittenberg or Elko. It's volunteers pitching in at the end and helping. Our schools our students involved in that activity, they could be. Is it ideal for elementary kids? I don't think so. But, we'd have to weigh that, the completion, how close we are to being complete. Technically, we couldn't occupy the building until we have occupancy issued.
And Tim, that would be after final inspections and
Correct.
and everything else.
Correct.
So
Correct.
you would have to meet codes and everything else before anybody could go into it from
Use it for educational purposes, yes.
Yeah, from my perspective, if we're going ahead with the building, let's plan on getting it to the point where we're using it. We don't want it sitting there waiting for something.
That was the reason for my asking. It looks like it's all or none.
Yes. Okay, any more questions?
I'd be more comfortable if I would know the exact amount. And I know that's hard to say right now. But
Well, I think
Jimmy, I can give you that. The bid was $708,000 is what the bid for the building was. With the transfer of the timber sales into the construction budget, we're at $652,000. So that from the 708. That's 56,000 short of our goal. With no contingency.
So would you be using the rest for fixtures or something, or would it be just contingency, or some of both?
JD, it gets back to the floor. You know, where does the committee fall with the floor? Are we going to spend all that money? Are we going to do a different option, as Mike suggests? And then furnishings. I think we can figure out how to do it to get it occupied and get us started.
Okay, sorry, my internet connection died there. So is there any more questions or comments here? And Mary Kay, do we have a motion and a second on this?
Yes, we do.
Tim, do you think the committee would rather have furnishings or a fancy floor?
I think the committee wants to get students up to the lake and get them using the building. And we just need a way to get started and get it finished and start using it. And whether that means having just a sealed floor, I think they'd be okay with that.
All right, I feel better, voting for it. Maybe we give up the fancy floor and just use the money to make sure we get it furnished. If we're gonna fund it, we might as well not have to use all used furnishings in our fancy new building.
Tim, wasn't this the fancy floor is already not there to make this work?
That the price, the 56,000 that we would be short, includes the 48,000 for the floor.
Ah. Okay.
So we're closer than, Andy, I don't want to paint a picture. That's what was bid. And we haven't talked to the Schwans about, we've done some value engineering, but we didn't get pricing on alternatives for the flooring, and we would do that before we go ahead.
Okay. So you're going to look into that further. Okay, well, I think we have to have a vote here so they have some direction so they can move forward. And one more time, any questions or comments? And then we're going to go ahead with a roll call vote, Mary Kay.
Okay, Boldig,
Yes.
Deep,
Yes.
Long,
I'm going to say no because I like to have different numbers. I like to know what the numbers are.
okay, Neufeld,
Yes.
Trader,
Yes.
Balzer,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes. Okay, looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Did we lose Andy?
Yeah, he's talking.
Oh, Andy, you're on mute.
Okay, I'm muted. I don't know when that happened.
Well, it's a comment I know a lot of people would like to give to me.
We're on to the consideration of the Aquatic Center reopening plan.
I move the board authorize the Clara R. McKenna Aquatic Center Board to make the decision to reopen the Aquatic Center to the community in consultation with the Langlade County Department of Health, the district medical advisor, and in following the guidelines developed by the CDC and the WEDC.
Seconded.
Okay, any questions or comments?
Andy, if I might just make a couple comments. So the aquatics board met last week, and we discussed how we would go about determining when to open and how to open. So I think the committee, first of all, would like the authority from the board to determine the when and the how. And we would do that based on, like the motion says, in consultation with the health department, our medical advisor, and then the guidance put out by the CDC and the WEDC. And we're talking about doing I'm going to call it a staggered opening, where we would start slow and cautiously and work with adults. And we would do things like probably doing partial openings with like maybe lap swimming in the morning and some adult aerobic classes so that adults know to social distance. They're pretty good at following rules. We wouldn't probably allow them access to the locker rooms to begin with. And we would, depending on how COVID is going in the county, we would, open then accordingly. So the primary is to allow opening to the community, not necessarily children right away, but to the community to get the building open and get our patrons back doing fitness activities.
Okay, so there's no plans to do lessons for the summer.
We would probably end up having to do maybe some lifeguard lessons. It's probably not likely that we would, at least the board is tentatively thinking that we'd like to have a full board meeting. I think it's June 10th, and evaluate. Mary Ponasek, the aquatics director, is developing a written plan for opening. And then the board would meet to review that plan, kind of get a sense of the timeline of what age groups and what activities and when, and approve that plan, announce that plan to the community. It's, I would say it would be doubtful that we would be doing something certainly within the first half of July. I don't know what Mary's plans are, if there would be even the possibility of offering swim lessons in August. I do not know that.
Okay.
Within Mary's plan, would there be the designation of authority to determine if the pool should be closed were things to escalate again? Who would be the shot caller on saying, okay, we need to slow things down, we need to shutter the doors again?
I would think the Department of Health, along with our medical advisor, the district's medical advisor.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Patrick McKenna. We're talking about, John McKenna has offered to purchase digital thermometers, so we would have a very formal check-in procedure. The front entrance, we're talking about maybe even starting with, so we can kind of control who's coming, so that you'd have to pre-register to and sign in, so we know who's there and when. And we might do shifts of morning swim, so you would sign up for the first time slot. The guidelines right now, if we have one lane, one occupant, one swimmer per lane, so that means we can have 6 swimmers. So you'd sign up for the first shift, second shift, third shift, that kind of thing. And again, we'd have like the aerobic classes where you would register for them rather than just walk in.
Okay.
Sounds to me like it's a plan that's being well investigated and well thought out, and the implementation would be still safe and in the best interest of the public. I don't see an issue here.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? And then if you'd all like to unmute, we'll just do a voice vote on this. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Any opposed? Jeannie, I don't know if you unmuted. I don't know if I heard your vote. Well, I think we pass anyhow. So that passes, and we'll go on to the next item, which is consideration of authorization to purchase supplies for 2021 school year.
I move the board authorize administration to begin purchasing supplies for the 2020-2021 school year not to exceed $250,000.
Second. We'll second that.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Tim, do you just want to give a little explanation of what this is?
Well, we haven't approved next year's budget yet, and we have orders that need to be placed for the start of next school year. And it's just a kind of routine business that we do every year because we don't have an approved budget.
Okay. Any further questions? And then we'll go ahead with a roll call vote, Mary Kay?
Okay. Deep,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Newfeld,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Balzer,
yes.
Bolduc,
Yes.
and Mary.
Yes. And then we'll go on to consideration of technology purchase for students.
I move the board approve the technology purchase of Chromebooks, iPads, and the Kahoot hotspots for distance learning not to exceed $300,000.
I'll second.
Okay. And Mark, if you're on, do you want to go over this a little more?
Yes, I'm here. This is Mark. Thank you, Eddie. If you're all looking at that list, I'll go down and explain a little bit about each. Some are self-explanatory. The iPad management on the top line, that's like the most expensive one that I've gotten so far on how right now we do not have much management on the iPads. We only have just a little bit over 200 in the district right now, and they're basically used one-on-one situations for speech and special ed kids. And other than the 4K through 1 in a 2-to-1 setting. So now that we're going to go to 1-to-1, I'd really like to have a little bit more control, not necessarily remoting in and stopping them, but at least it'll allow us to better filter what those kids are able to get to on the iPads, and the apps that we put on the iPads will be easier to manage with this software. So when I say management, it's like on our end to help filter and to help us load apps when the teachers want them easier than what we're doing right now, because we're basically doubling our iPad count with this process.
Mark, do we manage Chromebooks right now? Can teachers go on and stop kids from using their Chromebook, for example?
Yes, we have our own software, but we also have GoGuardian that the teachers have available for their classroom. They invite kids into that Google Classroom with their Chromebooks, and then they have the control over they want to freeze those Chromebooks while they're talking, or if they see one student maybe that is like wavering off task, they can stop that student from that. That's what GoGuarding is being used right now. But we also have our own Chromebook management so that we can push out like the testing that's getting done on the iPads. We have a central management situation that we push out those tests to all of them at the same time that are broke down into groups. So we can, if the certain testing is only 2 through 8, then those Chromebooks will get that. And then the freshmen, seniors, they do different testings. We can push that out to those groups. Yes, we do the management on Chromebooks already.
Okay.
Mark, will it be a yearly management fee or just a one-time?
Everything is a yearly management fee. So what we're doing now and that iPad management in the future. But like I said, that $3,600 is about the highest cost I've seen so far. Me and 2 of my techs that will mainly be doing the management are reviewing 2 software that are recommended from Apple Incorporated themselves. I worked with Apple to get the demos started. We have one set up for Thursday and the second one's not set up yet, but there's 2 that Apple work with for the iPad management. One of them has been in operation for 20 years. And so Apple's pretty much just threw up their hands and say, why are we developing anything that's already in such good control? So they work with those 2 companies to help management, and they work together, the 3 companies. So the other devices on there are the iPads, self-explanatory. We're doubling up our iPads for the core K, kindergarten and first graders. Chromebooks, we're doubling from 2 to 1 to 1 to 1 from grades 2 through 7. And then the iPad cases for the iPads, it's always a problem with the little ones and slippery fingers, and they're not the easiest things to hang on even for adults. So these cases that I found fit very tight, very well, and they handle a 4-foot drop without any damage.
Oh.
The last 2 items on there is an either or. I'm just and those can be adjusted. That's why we're asking for to stay under 300,000 here. We're estimating how many Khajiit hotspots. Khajiit is just the company. The hotspot is the individual thing that we would check out for the families to use for internet access at their homes if they don't have them already. You can see the 2 different ones is 2 gigs for 6 months or 3 gigs a day for 6 months. That can go all the way down to 1 gig per month. The hotspots are meant basically for individual students, not necessarily a household, but you can crank up how much gig is there. Like if we have a household of 3 students in our school district that are in one household, we can give them a little bit more gigabytes so that they can take turns and use that Khajiit instead of handing out 3 separate Khajiits for one household. That's just a number, same with 2 or 4 students in a household. So we'll try and manage how many are in a household instead of just giving them out to every student.
Mark, could you talk a little bit to the board about the management of the Khajiits with that built in terms of time of usage and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the Khajiit is basically already monitoring. They're set up for school situations, so they're already blocking a lot of the things that are uneducational already. But they also, with that price, give us a management tool so that we can either whitelist, allow like a YouTube classroom setting that they're blocking now, or to clamp down more on what they're actually able to use on that hotspot. And it allows us to monitor how that Khajiit is being used. If we see that maybe they're starting to wane away from a lot of the educational sites, we can throttle them back and tell them why we're throttling it back, that we've seen traffic that's not educational use on those. So it's basically a really good thing for an education facility to use. And there's a lot of them being used in the area. I know Green Bay School District, I don't even know how many hundreds they have out, and I've talked to a couple other ones that they're really happy with their Khajiits and management and how they're able to control what a family's doing on them.
So Mark, are they linked right to the iPad or Chromebook, or can families, mom and dad, use this for their computer?
Well, it is a hotspot that would be connected directly with Verizon in our area. So technically, yes, anybody could connect to it, but we're hoping to, again, be able to manage the Chromebooks that when they log into the Chromebook, they're automatically logging into that Khajiit. So the family, we don't necessarily have to give the family that password to connect to the Jeet like you would buy a hotspot for yourself. You would have the password and be able to tell the whole family to connect to it. Another thing with Khajiit, we can push that out with the Chromebooks, and just those Chromebooks would be able to connect to it because they have the password built in, and not necessarily share that password for everybody else in the household or friends, family, aunts, uncles to use it. So,
Okay.
That all sounds good, Mark. Good thinking. So are you going to immediately block Netflix before we even start, or is that like a...
No, that's pretty much blocked everywhere we have right now, and it's definitely blocked on the Khajiit also.
So Mark, are these a 1-year thing? So, down the road, if better technology comes along, we're just renting these for the year?
Well, actually with Khajiit, once you make this purchase, they're yours. We're going to buy them. If we go ahead with this, the minimum will be a 6-month thing. But even after that 6 months, let's say we're all back in school normally, we could just activate however many we wanted to hand out. If a student wanted to take a Khajiit to do homework because he was going to be with aunt and uncle for a month, we could give them to the IMCs, or they could then schedule them to go with that student. They would check them out just like it was a book. They could take them and so, I mean, basically they're our product, and then we could turn on and turn off the activation as needed. Even after the 6 months.
Are these 4G? How close are we to actually that we could have getting 5G ones? Progress that, or is that so far away it's irrelevant?
Yeah, at this point, it's more the area that we live in for the 4G and 5G than it would be the device. These devices would be able to handle it, but in our area, we're not getting those speeds right now. So, but they would be able to handle them.
Cool.
If a student or a family starts to reach their data cap, because I feel like is it 2 gigs per month or 2 gigs for 6 months?
It's actually 2 gigs a day.
Okay, all right.
That's capped off at.
Okay, never mind then.
Yep, no problem.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Julie, were you going to speak to funding, or would you like me to talk about that?
There, I'm unmuted. We just received some good news that I learned about first from Tim. So with that, Tim, I'll let you speak to the federal funds.
So Heidi was attending a webinar, and DPI with the CARES Act. I had heard that we were going to get some additional, and I thought was going to be Title I funding. The only thing about the federal funding that we're getting through the CARES Act that deals with title is how they determine our allocation. So they're going to receive a supplemental aid for from the CARES Act that has to do with dealing with the COVID situation and not having students in our buildings. It's pretty broad-based. They do speak to allowing the funds to be used for technology for virtualization of the classroom. DPI is in the final stages of developing some financial guidance for us, but we anticipate that we're going to get 70 to 80% of our Title I allocation for supplemental aid. And in Antigo's case, that's between $470,000 and $500,000. So this will go a long way to covering our virtual cost. It is a one-time cost. And Mark, maybe you want to speak a little bit about how the E-rate and USAC is changing or there's talk of change coming down the pike with internet service providers and monthly student internet bills.
Yeah, we were able to get on board with USAC, which provides the E-rate, handles the E-rate. They wanted the Congress to address it sooner than later about handling E-rate and handling districts and helping with the distance learning thing, and just get internet out to the broad areas that aren't handling it. So we were able to jump on and get our name on the petition to hopefully push them into a decision and to help us. So typically they did not handle a separate ISP than what you needed just for your district. So what USAC and E-rate wants to do now is be able to supply money to help people get that ISP connection to those individual homes that they didn't cover before. So we're hoping between that and Congress giving them money that they'll also be able to help us pay for all these services that we are now needing to provide.
So we know that the DPI funding through the CARES Act will be coming. What I've been told by DPI is it will, we can make claims on expenses through when the closure order was ordered by Governor Evers. So we can make claim for expenses through March, and expenditures that we incur during up through this fiscal year, we would make claims for this fiscal year, and they are going to extend. My understanding is some of those expenses would be allowed to be incurred for next year, and we would be able to claim for those expenses up to that 75 to 80% of our allocation.
Okay. Any more from members of the board?
Andy, I have one other comment, and that has to do with the number. You know, Mark and I and Amy Doms have talked about, you know, how many of these wireless devices do we need, you know, to check out? And Mark mentioned the Green Bay Public Schools. Green Bay essentially had their administrative assistants contact families prior to checkout. There was some proof that you actually weren't able to access the internet where you were using the internet. So if the kids during the day when they're at home are with grandma and grandpa don't have internet, we would check the device out for when they're with grandma and grandpa. You know, is 300 enough devices? We don't know, and we won't know that number until we formally start making those calls and parents find out that we're going to virtual learning to some extent. So it's a little bit of a kind of a wild guess at this point. It's an educated guess, but is that the right number? We don't know.
So Tim, you might want to contact Angie Close, because she is working with the Heart, I don't know if it's foundation or what, to do a survey to see what the actual needs of internet in our county would be. And so they're not going to survey the city of Antigo, they're going to survey everybody else because they think in the city of Antigo, internet service is good. And she didn't give me a lot of detail on that yet. We're going to talk about it next week at a meeting, but it might be worth it for you just to give her a call and talk to her about it.
Okay.
You and Mark. Okay, any other questions, comments? Then Mary Kay, we have a motion and a second, correct?
Yes.
And we would go ahead with a roll call.
Okay. Long? Long?
Yes, I had on mute.
Neufeld?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
Falzer?
Yes.
Boldig,
Yes.
Deep,
Yes.
and Mary.
Yes. And then we'll go on to item E, consideration of approval of 4K agreements.
I move the board approve the 4K agreements with All Saints and Head Start as presented.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments on this? This is, I assume, is just the same as we do every year with these two.
It is.
Okay, if there are no further questions or comments, we can all unmute and do a voice vote for this. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. And we'll go on to item F, report of employee resignations and retirements.
I move the board approve the resignations of Scott Farmer, physical education teacher and head baseball coach, Heather Beth Sweeney, school counselor, Melissa Jędrzejkowski, instructional assistant, and Tim Bossman, middle school technical education teacher, and retirement of Kate Robb, 8th grade English language arts teacher, effective at the end of the 2019-2020 school year.
Seconded.
Any questions or comments on this?
Other than we thank them for their service and we wish them well in their future endeavors.
Thank you, Mike. Anything else? And if we'd all unmute, we'll do a voice vote on this. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and we'll go on to report regarding district personnel new hires.
I move the board approve the following new hires: Jonathan Decker, West Elementary 3rd grade; Katie Welsh, North Elementary kindergarten; Alexandria Brown, middle school 5th grade; Jessica Weaver, middle school 4th grade; and Aubrey Dumpke, West Elementary 1st grade.
I'll second.
Okay, any questions or comments on this? And if we'd all unmute, we will do a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? And that passes, and we'll go on to item H, report of donations.
I move the board accept the following donations: $700 from Mary's Berries for Nebokan Lodge School Forest Project, and $200 from BB Jack's MJ LLC Eat Like You Care for Nebokan Lodge School Forest Project, for a total of $900.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments? And if we'd unmute, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And any opposed? And we will just confirm that the next meeting will be Tuesday, June 9th.
That would be the committee of the whole.
That's
Board
committee of
meeting
the
will be
whole, yes.
23rd.
It should be, yeah, what did you say, June
June
20th?
23rd.
June 23rd.
Okay, yes.
When do you decide if that one's going to be in person or not?
I don't know. What do you think, Dr. Deep? When do you decide that we could have an in-person meeting?
Well, I thought that the school districts were not supposed to open until the end of June. The restrictions are in place until the end of June.
Okay, so then we'll think about it in July.
That was
We
my,
can do that. You know, we have people coming into the buildings, but we're practicing social distancing, certainly, and keeping track of who's in and out. So it's really up to the board. We can absolutely wait to meet in person in July. We can have both meetings in June be virtual, certainly.
It's a lot easier driving home this way.
I know these meetings are,
Go ahead, Andy.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
go ahead, Mike.
Okay, what I was going to say is I realize this has been an interesting few months for all of us, and I think if we're going to become a virtual learning district that we're meeting virtually, we're learning as we go. So I think we're doing okay. But yeah, I would consider that if we gave it another month yet and said July, I think we would be on the safe side of things. But that's my own opinion. Everybody else can make up their own minds.
Well, I can't stay awake when we're doing virtual, when we're face to face.
Drink more Mountain Dew, Mary.
Oh, thank you, Noel, for calling me.
Okay. Okay, so we have our meeting set for next month, and it's most likely going to be virtual. And with that, we would look to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night.
Good night,
Good night.
everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Take care.